evening's class, we're going to start seated on the block in hero's pose. So allow yourself to set the block up in a portrait style and have the knees forwards of the block, feet out wide. So as you sit back, hopefully sitting bones are placed gently on top of the block. You can always grab another brick or a block, but just make sure you've got both sitting bones supported. You're not going across the coccyx itself. We're going to sit up nice and tall and just try and allow the pelvis to find a neutral position. So sometimes you need to kind of roll that around a little bit and get a little bit of space. So the spine is as long as we can make it with the minimum amount of effort. The better the posture, the easier the breath. The easier the breath, the longer the breath. Longer the breath, the longer the movement. And the longer the movement, the longer the effect. It's a simple recipe. Allow ourselves to just settle from the day's busyness and breathe. And welcome the breath from the diaphragm and allow the belly to expand. So begin to take some neck circles, just dropping the chin in towards the chest, keeping the spine long. Slowly drawing the chin out towards the right shoulder, looking along the floor, and then up any walls that you have in the building. Across the ceiling, try not to drop the head too far back. You want to keep it feeling quite open. All the way to the opposite wall. The eyes run down from ceiling to floor, and then back in towards that left shoulder. We'll take that one revolution the opposite way. So again, just walking along the floor with your eyes up the wall to the ceiling, across the ceiling, and on the opposite wall to the floor. And gently chin towards chest. Bring the hands to the floor. Let ourselves lift up. Move the block out to the side. And allow ourselves to just tuck the toes underneath so that they are heels underneath the sitting bones. And we're getting a toe stretch in there. So we can start with the hands on the floor just to kind of let the toes settle in a little bit. But if that feels okay, you can draw the tummy muscles in and walk your fingers along and take a little bit more weight into the joints. You decide at what point it becomes too arduous. It will be a strain and a challenge, but you should still be able to breathe and certainly not gritting your teeth to stay in the pose. Only taking a small stretch there, we'll bring the hands back in towards the front of the mat as we untuck toes, bootlaces down, and run ourselves into a cat-cow. Drawing the chest forwards, rolling the shoulders back and tailbone to the sky. We keep the belly drawn a little bit, and then on the exhale, we draw it in a lot more towards the spine and allow the shoulders to round up towards the sky with the head dropping. Inhaling again forwards. Exhaling out. Come back into neutral position. We'll take the knees wide, toes together, and sit back onto the heels. So a chance to stretch the toes out the opposite way. As we take the hands forwards and gently settle ourselves into child's pose. Trying to spread the shoulders out wide, keeping the elbows off the ground and hands flat to the floor. You can let the forehead rest on the ground. Take slightly longer breaths and encourage the ribs to expand out sideways. The arms in this position be a little bit more easy to identify the stretch. Bring the forehead back up. Allow ourselves to come from there up onto all fours. And we'll bring the elbows to the ground, about shoulder distance apart. Bring the hands into prayer, so we're not interlacing the fingers quite. We'll take the feet back, about hip distance apart, and keeping the shoulders as high from the floor as we can. We keep the hips in line, just pressing out through the heels. Now we're going to take a little breath and allow ourselves to take the feet over towards the left as you come onto that left elbow. Make sure that your elbow is underneath your shoulder. And taking one leg on top of the other, stacked, we're going to lift the right hand up towards the sky. Pressing down through the fullness of your forearm, stacking on the side of your foot, lifting the hips at least as high as you're able to. Bring the hands back down to the ground. Come back onto those elbows and press out through the heels again. And pushing away from the floor. So be careful you don't sink into the shoulders. We'll turn the feet to the right side. Allow ourselves to stack one foot on top of the other carefully. And then lift the left hand this time, hips high, pressing down. Ease the hands down to the floor, back onto the elbows. Again, pushing down into the ground, trying to keep those shoulders as high as we can. The shoulders over the elbows, and pressing out strong through the heels. Trying to keep the body in a nice, long, flat line. And then we can bring the knees down to the floor. Whew. And lift up onto all fours. Take a little breath from there, tuck the toes underneath. Ease ourselves into down dog. Just walking the feet out if that feels good at this time of the evening. Summer months, the body is a little bit more warmed up, so sometimes you may feel that just being in stillness is all you need to do to stretch out the back of your legs. If you feel the need to pedal, try and pedal slowly. Work on keeping the hands flat to the ground, pay particular attention to the index finger, the knuckle, pressing down into the floor and feeling the palm stretch out a little bit. If you're able to, you're trying to turn the armpits just a little bit more down towards the ground. Draw the belly in. Now I'm going to walk the hands down the mat towards the toes into our first standing forward bend. We'll bring the hands onto the shins as we arrive and come into a half forward bend. So just letting the shoulders roll back a little bit, getting used to pressing the feet down and the legs straightening out, drawing the belly in as you exhale and folding over those hips down to the floor again together. Come up again on the inhale. And then slowly back down again. And try and keep the shoulders relaxed and uncongested. Spine long. Bring the hands onto the hips this time, soften the knees a little and let ourselves lift up. We'll take the arms up towards the sky on the inhale. Bring the palms together. On the exhale, let the hands come back down to the side and down towards the hips, just following the breath. We'll inhale up again. And exhale down. And inhaling up. Then we'll come up onto the tiptoes. Bring the heels down as the hands come towards the hips. We'll lift again. Ease our way down. We'll attempt to lift for a third time. Now, as you land, bring your hands in towards your heart. Just wiggle your toes together if they weren't already. So the big toe touches, a little bit of a gap for the ankle bones. I'm going to shift the weight into the left leg and draw the right knee up to about the height of the hip. I'm going to take the right hand onto the inside of the thigh and see if I can reach down to find the big toe as I take the left hand out to the side. I'll lift up as high as I can with that knee and then see if I can extend out towards the front of the mat, pressing out through the heel just a little. And then we'll bend the knee and bring the foot gently back down to the floor. And all things being good, we're still in the same place. Hands into the heart, find your focus point, shift your weight into your right leg. Slowly start to lift the left. Lean forward just a little, slowly. Find your big toe with the index finger, middle finger, and allow the right hand to come out to the side. Lengthen the leg out, press. The belly drawn in. And then we'll bring that foot down to the floor as well. Allow ourselves to take the feet out hip distance apart again as we bring the hands high. In through the heart and exhale down to the floor. Into that deep forward bend. Then hands onto the hips again. Soften the knees a little to let ourselves lift. We'll take the hands high again and bring the toes back together. Hands in towards the heart, soften the knees over the toes and sit back into chair pose. We'll take a little breath and lengthen the hands out in front. Weight to shift a little more into the heels. Try and keep your head in line with the rest of your body. Keep the spine as long as you can, so you tuck the tailbone down and under a little bit. You'll notice that as you look down to your knees, they are glued together, hopefully, pressing in and aligned. I'll bring the hands in towards the heart, take a little breath, and we'll take that left elbow across to the right side to revolve round. And we'll try and keep the knees together, aligned, and the hips staying over the center line of the mat. Now, looking at the floor allows you to kind of visualize where you are a bit better. But if you want to change your balance, challenge the balance a little more, you can look to the side, or you can look to the sky. Just as long as it feels easy in the neck and the shoulders. You're actually trying to squeeze the shoulder blades together a little bit. You feel like you're opening the chest, drawing the shoulders back. Cross over, gently to the opposite side. Take a breath in the middle. And fold ourselves around. And again, try to lengthen the spine out of the pelvis. Allow yourself to turn the head if it feels easy. Again, slow movements, just letting the eyes move along the floor and up a wall. And it gives you that chance to squeeze the shoulder blades together and sort your breath out. We'll come back into the center. Extend the hands out nice and wide. Take a little breath. And allow ourselves to lift up slowly. We'll drop the arms out to the sides. Shake everything out as we walk into the front of the mat. Feet about hip distance apart. Bring the hands simply in towards the heart. Take a little breath. I'm going to turn towards my right, so I'm facing the screen. And taking the feet out wide as comfortable. Letting the arms float out, almost in a star shape. We'll turn the toes of both feet towards the front of the mat. So I'll follow the line of the mat with the front leg, and then let the knee follow that line into my warrior two. Pressing lightly down into that back foot. I'll take a breath from here. Allow myself to straighten the front leg gently as I lean out into a long, long triangle pose. Bring the hand down onto the side of the shin or onto the shin if you need. Listen down with both feet, top arm reaches to the sky, and we roll the chest open up towards the ceiling. Try not to be fixated on bringing your hand all the way to the floor. You want to be able to feel that your spine is lengthening out of the pelvis, not curving too much towards the ground. So depending on how much movement and range you've got in the hips, your spine is going to be in a different place. So touching the ground isn't the nth degree of the pose. We'll take a little breath and soften the front knee, bring it over the ankle, lift ourselves up into warrior two to stabilize and bring the hips back into neutral. Bringing the hands up as we breathe in, we'll bring them onto the inside of this front leg. And down to the floor we can go. Now walk the fingers slowly around to the long side of the mat, turn the heels out. Lift the body up high so the spine is parallel to the ground. Begin to send your tailbone towards the back of the mat. Allow your shoulders to roll out to the side a little. Have the fingers about shoulder distance apart. In your own time, when you're ready, allow yourself to exhale, maybe over more than one breath. Come down towards the ground. Into a long forward bend. Try and keep the weight even through the foot. Pressing down with both feet. Drawing the tummy muscles in and lifting the hips up. Allow the spine muscles to relax. We'll lift up slowly. Walk the fingers through to the front of the mat. Into a lunge. On the fingertips, take a breath. Push off the toes into a forward bend. Allow the hands to come onto the hips, soften the knees a little bit as we lift up. Bring hands in towards the heart again. We'll take the turn to the opposite side. Allow ourselves to walk the feet out to a comfortable distance. Floating the arms, we come back into that star shape. And then we turn both feet towards the front of the mat. Soften into that front knee until out of your peripheral vision, you think your knee is over your ankle. Getting a good connection, pressing the back foot flat to the floor, feeling the muscles engage. And then you can start to straighten the front leg. Send the hips back as you lengthen out into that long triangle. Just to the second side. Again, try and allow the chest to open. You can use the arm against the inside of the lower part of the shin to help rotate around a little bit in the pose. Soften the front knee. Slowly lift ourselves up into our warrior twos. Bring the hands high, and again, they come onto the inside of the front leg. Again, we'll walk the hands around to the long side of the mat, turning the toes in, heels out. But plenty of height in the body as we take a breath in, and just turn the toes in enough to make sure that it feels like the hips are freed up. And then on your exhale, hinge at the hips again. Allow yourself to float close to the floor. We'll lift slowly back up. Walk the fingers around to the front of the mat. Turning the toes with us. Last little press out on the back foot. And then push off the toes into that forward bend. Hands onto the hips. So as to lift up. Hands in towards the heart. Turn to the right again. Take the feet out wide into that big star shape. You just have to turn the toes and sink into your warrior two. Now you're going to take a breath and bring your hands in towards your heart. As you exhale, turn your chest towards the front of the mat. Lean forwards as you press your right hand out towards the front of the mat and the left hand behind, about the height of your shoulder. Allow yourself to float the arms forwards and lift yourself slowly back up And rotate gently into your warrior two. Slowly straighten your front leg. Allow yourself to lengthen out into your triangle pose. And take a breath. And this time we're going to extend the top arm out towards the front of the mat to get a little longer in the body. So we're still lifting the body up from the floor. One more breath. And then as you soften the front knee, bring both hands onto the inside of that front leg. We'll walk the fingers around to the long side of the mat, turning the toes in. Now this time put a purposeful bend in the knees and allow your body to be as flat and as long as you can as you take the hands behind and interlace the fingers lightly. Squeezing the shoulder blades together, lift your hands towards the sky. And on the exhale, allow yourself to fold over your hips. Let the hands drift towards the long side of the mat. And press down into the feet. Get a sensation of lifting the hips towards the sky. Bring the hands down again slowly to the hips and then to the floor, lifting the spine a little as we walk ourselves towards the front of the mat. Take a breath and push off the toes into our forward bend. Allow that to take shape. And bring the hands onto the hips as we lift up. Hands into the heart as we breathe in. We'll turn to the outside of the mat. So moving over to the left side. Coming back into our star shape. As you exhale, turn your toes and sink into your front knee. Take a little breath and bring your hands towards your heart, keeping the back foot balanced on the ground. Allow yourself to lean into your advancing warrior. Float your right arm forward so both arms lift up. And come high and rotate again gently into your warrior two. Bring the hands towards the sky. Bring them back down again because I've forgotten where I'm going. That happens on a Friday night. Into triangle pose. We're sending the hips back and a long leg. Lengthen out. Bringing the hands into position. Then we'll turn the palm on the front hand and extend out. Still lifting the body. Remember to breathe. Remember to press down through the legs. And turn gently as you slowly bend into that front knee and bring the hands down to the floor. Your fingers along to the long side of the mat, turning the toes in. Only we're going to take some spiraling through the spine. So I'm going to bring the right hand to the floor, draw the left elbow to the sky, and lift it up and lengthen up. Bring the hand down to the exhale. Cross gently over to the opposite side. Coming back down again. And taking it to the right. Coming down on the exhale. Still pressing down into those legs. Keeping the weight even through the feet. Even though the arm is on the floor or hand is on the floor. Come for a final time to lift to the right. And walk ourselves around to the front of the mat into our lunge. Take a little breath, push off the toes, and we're into our forward bend and let it again develop as we use the exhale to sink in a little deeper. Bring the hands onto the hips, soften the knees, and let ourselves lift. Hands into the heart. Take a breath in. Turn to the right. Getting the hang of this now. Taking the feet out wide. Coming into our star shape as we breathe in. Use the exhale to turn the feet. Sink into the front knee. Hands in towards the heart. Advancing warrior. Turn. Right hand lengthens out. We lean out over the front thigh. Left arm comes through and up. We lift again into our warrior two. Straighten the front leg into our triangle pose. And lengthen out. And then soften the knee. Come back into warrior two. This time we're going to lengthen out into extended side angle. Allow the forearm to come down and the top arm to come up. I'm going to take a little breath, keeping the height in the body. Bring your right hand back onto your hip. Take a breath and allow the bottom hand to come to the floor. Then you're going to start to walk that forwards and step the back foot about halfway in. Take the fingers out a little further in front. Allow yourself to lift into half moon. So the toes point out to the side, the hips are lifted. Square to that long side of the mat. Right hand up towards the sky, above the shoulders. Take a breath and soften the front knee. Come back into the extended side angle position and then float back up into our warrior two and take the hands high. Down to the floor we go. And we're going to come into forward bend. And I'm going to move my mat back out because I just caught that with my foot a little bit. There we go. And hands onto the hips again, lift up. Do the same to the second side. Hands high. In towards your heart. Turn out to the left. Feet out wide. Come into your star. Turn the toes towards the front of the mat. Sink into your warrior two. Hands into the heart, strong back foot pressing down. Rotate the chest fully, lengthen out and lean out over that front leg. Swoop your right arm forwards and lift your body up. Open up into your warrior two. Straighten the front leg. And lengthen out into your triangle pose. Now soften the front knee, come back into the warrior two. And lengthen out over the front thigh. Extended side angle. We set ourselves up. Lift the hand high, get some space. And then bring the hand onto the hip. Front hand comes onto the inside of the legs and then just walk the fingers out. They'll move towards the outside edge of the shoulder a little bit. Step the back foot in about halfway. And allow yourself to lift the back foot away from the floor. And take the top arm up towards the sky. You want to make sure that your foot is always presented parallel to the center line of the mat so that your body can follow the line of the mat as well. Because if you're trying to bring your body on the line of the mat and your foot is twisted, it's very difficult to catch your balance. We'll step back into that extended side angle. Whoops. And then lift into our warrior two. Take the hands high. Bring hands down to the floor. Into our lunge. Take a little breath. Push off the toes. And towards the front of the mat. Now hopefully your block is still close to the front of the mat. You can take that behind your heels and then lift your heels onto the corner edges as you turn the toes out. Allow yourselves to sit down into our friendly squat. Bring the hands in towards the heart. Use the arms into the backs of the legs to open the groins out a little bit more. Lift the chest, bring the hands in towards your heart. Roll the shoulders back. And hopefully it's easy to breathe. If you do feel a little bit vulnerable, like you can tilt back and keep your fingers on the floor. Don't worry about bringing the hands in towards the heart. You can still brace your arms into your legs to open out those groins a little bit, even if you're leaning forwards. Got the breath under control a little bit after using all those big leg muscles. Bring the hands to the floor and allow yourself to lift your hips high. You can bring the heels off the block and just move that out of the way. And then when you're ready, step yourself back into your down dog. Just final little stretch out. And then we'll come forwards into a plank. Keep the belly strong, bend the elbows back. Allow the body to sink down to the floor gently. You want to come all the way down onto our belly and then bring the hands down towards the bottom of the ribs for low cobra. We're going to inhale up, and each time we come up, we'll squeeze the shoulder blades a little bit and keep the legs on the floor, toes away, the heels rolling out. We use the inhale to come up, so the belly expands a little bit. That helps with the lift. And exhale down. There's virtually no weight in the hands. Really, they're just to stop us rolling around a little bit and make it easier to keep the shoulders in contraction at the top of the pose. Let's take a few more. And then we're going to come into gecko pose. So then put the hands out wide like a press up onto the fingertips, elbows high. On the exhale, we'll press into the fingertips and lift the body up and forwards. Bring ourselves back down on the inhale. So exhale up, keep the belly drawn in. Try and lengthen the legs away and keep a bit of space in the lower back. So again, it's not important to come up super high. You just want to feel that point where the muscles are doing the work. You've got a comfortable compression feel in your lower back. It doesn't feel like you're overworking your lower spine muscles and discs. Come up for the last time. And then come back down to the floor. And as you arrive, take your hands alongside your body, palms face down. We're going to lift our hands and the chest away from the ground, keeping the thighs on the floor. So locust pose. Inhale up. Using the exhale to come down. And a little squeeze the shoulder blades together. And take one more of those. And then I'm going to ask you to bend your elbows and make some fists. So inhale up and squeeze your shoulder blades together. Keep the arms out with that little bend in the elbow. Lift up. Squeeze the shoulder blades together as well as you can. Lift up. Squeeze. Make sure the elbows come together a little bit more. Lift up. Squeeze. That's a little last time. And then hands can come to the floor. And back alongside the body, palms face down. This time we lift the thighs away from the ground. Inhale up and exhale down. Thighs lift and come down. Inhale up and down. And last time. And then we join the hands, chest, and thighs lifting together. Come up for 1, for 2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, take the breath and bend your right knee and take your hands down towards the foot. So the palm of the hand is pressing onto the bootleg side of your foot. Try to bring the heel in towards your bottom, and as much as possible, see if you keep those thighs parallel to one another. So avoiding letting the knee spring out to the side. And trying to keep the hips and the belly and the chest flat to the floor. Taking the opposite hand underneath the chin, elbow out to the side for a little bit of stability. You could take another breath here. And then release that down to the floor. And cross over to the opposite side. And do the same. You could always change that up into a full version of bow pose for both lifts, or be happy with this slightly less strenuous version on the discs in the spine. So we get the benefits, we minimize risk. We'll take a little breath from there and just draw the knees in towards the body. Allow ourselves to lift up. Then move the feet towards the front of the mat. And knees high, chin towards chest, hands behind. And simply roll down to the floor. And take the arms out wide. Take a little breath and shimmy the hips now over towards the left. Legs go down towards the right. I'm trying my best to keep the shoulders flat to the ground. Let's see if I can keep the thighs just pressing together. So I want the bottom leg to be as low as possible, which means I need to press the top leg down a little bit and keep the thighs as close as I can on top of each other. So the feet ideally would be stacked on top as well. Not an absolute science, the knees certainly won't be in line with each other unlikely unless you're able to rotate very far out. And try to keep the shoulders relaxed, even though the legs are feeling like they're doing some work. Bring the legs back up. Realign the spine. And then I'm going to move the hips over towards the right. The legs go down over to the left. Taking my time to move them in. And we're trying to allow the bottom leg to get as low as it can. But we need to work on that top leg, pressing in a little bit. Gets a little bit crampy on the inside of the groin and the inner thighs. And we want to start to lift up back to the center. And take the feet as wide as the mat. So it's still close in towards the body, and knees rocking in towards the center. Going to let the legs rock out towards the right side, so I roll onto the side edge of the foot. And generally, for most of us, this bottom leg will get close to the ground, but the top leg is going to be floating in quite high. We're going to press that thigh down and towards the ground again. As we're doing that, I'm going to try and relax the bottom leg and the shoulders. Lift it back up. And realign the legs if you need to, and take them over to the opposite side. Again, it's working on that bottom leg, pressing in. And we'll bring the knees back to the center. I'm going to lengthen the legs out and roll onto my belly. Now, I do appreciate that you might want to do that with your face a little bit closer to the screen so you can see what's going on. But on the theory that I know where I'm going, I can do it the other way around. I'm going to take the hands out nice and wide, and I've got the feet touching, legs lengthened out along the mat. It's called a scorpion pose. It's a flowing posture. It's good for your lower back. It stretches it in lots of different ways. First thing we do is come up onto the fingertips, because those hands will move to the right and to the left a little bit as we roll onto the associated side. I'm going to take the first breath in and bend my left knee, so toes towards the sky. As I exhale, I'm going to press the toes up towards the sky and lift the knee away from the floor as high as I can. So we're already starting to press down into that right leg. As I lean out towards the left, I can let the head drop, and I take the foot over to the side and as close to my hand as I can manage. Now we'll progressively get closer. I'm going to lift the leg back up and roll onto the chest and bring the thigh down carefully to the floor. Toes come together. I'll lift on the opposite side. So the knee lifts. Take it over on the exhale. Let the head drop in. Take the foot back as far as I can. Lift it high on the inhale. Roll slowly back down on the exhale and let the leg come gently to the floor. So nice and controlled. And we can take it across to the opposite side again. So we'll lift up on the inhale. Use the exhale to roll over. The idea is to take your foot to your hand. So for those that are ingenious and work out, you can move your hand towards your foot. It's a slightly different thing. Take a little breath. Lift. Right knee up. Roll it out. Shoulder on the ground. As far as you can use your toes to help walk you in a little bit to get a little bit more, and roll yourself gently back. Ultimately, it's not about actually getting your foot and your hand to touch. It's about the lift of the thigh, opening that hip flexor, taking it over, and getting some rotation in the spine. If you think about that, then every one that you do will feel like a complete achievement, rather than focusing on not actually getting your hand and your foot to touch. If it does, great. If your foot can go even further up, great. But as long as you can feel your spine working, your hip flexors opening, that's all we need. We'll come down for the last time. I'm going to take a little breath and bring the hands down towards the bottom of the ribs, shoulders and elbows back. Peel ourselves away from the floor. Bring the knees forward. I'm going to turn around again towards the front of the mat and allow myself to take the block and place it underneath my bum. Sitting up tall, legs out in front. The moment's being Dandasana. So the feet are pressing together, the thighs are rolling in, the toes are drawn back and spread. Sitting bones pressed down, the chest is nice and open, and I'm conscious of the position of the head over the spine. Take a little breath from here and take that left foot underneath and out towards the right side. So the knee is firstly on the ground and pointing forwards, and then wrapping the right foot across. I'll lift the left arm up and bring myself into a twist towards the right side. Try and keep the weight even on both sitting bones. Press the pelvis forwards a little bit, so the top of the pelvis moves forwards and the bottom of the pelvis moves backwards a little bit. And release. And move into the second side. Let ourselves relax, open again. Taking the legs out in front. I'm going to bring the left heel into the groin. I'm going to move off of the block, so flat to the floor. Square the hips up, put a little bend in the knee and hands onto the shins, lift up the spine long, and hinge over the hips. Now I'm going to turn the thigh in a little bit if, like me, the leg tends to roll out a little bit to the side. You want to think of your shin, your knee, and your thigh pointing up towards the sky, not rolling out to either side. I'm going to press the heel into the groin. Once you've come down as low as you can, try and lengthen your heel away, draw the tailbone back. We'll take the hands on top of that front leg, and we'll actually lift up the body a little bit from the shin. So we're putting more of a straight line through the spine and drawing the shoulders back. The bent knee, shin presses down into the floor, the heel presses into the groin, tailbones press back, and the belly draws in. Once you've done all that, we'll take a breath and then we release. It takes as long to get into the pose as it does to actually be there. Come into the opposite side, square the hips, a little bend in the knee as you had before. Hands onto the shin to start with. Allow yourself to line up, keep yourself happy. Allow yourself to fold in. And out on top of the foot. And press heel away when you're ready, when the muscles feel long or able to get longer, and draw the hip back. Remember, we're pressing the heel into the groin. We're actually trying to lift the body up. We're not pulling down towards the leg. We're kind of 45-degree angle and shooting to the front of the mat and trying to get this knee to come down to the floor. So hopefully you can start to feel the heel and the back of the calf pressing into the ground, and a little bit of the sitting bone on this left leg as well. Nice breath in, and then we can release. Whew. We're done. We're into Shavasana. So I'm going to use the block at the end of my practice. Just roll the spine down nice and gently. So some big muscles. We did get breathing a little bit and build some heat. We certainly weren't moving towards fast flow. It was very slow, like we said at the beginning. Long breath, long movement, more effect. Now wriggle the shoulders down, the hips away, lengthen the legs, fingers and the toes, and loosen the jaw. We close the eyes. And we'll let ourselves focus on the breath, the feeling of the heart pumping in the chest, the blood and the heat moving around the body, the oxygen being moved around with it. And just noticing how the body feels as we rest and relax into the ground. Where are you holding on, if at all, and where can you let go more if you are able? We'll begin to stretch those fingers and toes gently, breathing in a little deeper. We'll start to move the wrists and ankles around gently, just to reconnect the nervous system and the body entirely. And once you're ready, allow yourself to take a long stretch in any way that feels good. Slide your heels along the floor. Let the knees come in towards your body. A very gentle hug. Now, specifically, this needs to be soft and gentle. So that we're not working the muscles, we're just easing the body into a different shape. You take a little breath and roll the legs over towards the right side. Take another breath and use the hands on the exhale to press away from the ground and lift up. We'll spin gently back into a seated posture of choice. Something that's easy for you to maintain and breathe in. Let the hands come towards the heart as we take that breath in, closing the eyes. And slow exhalation, we begin to let the chin drop. As you feel the belly drawn to the spine, let that bow deepen and simply close your practice. On the inhale of your breath, let the spine build, let the head follow, eyes open. Namaste. Thanks so much for joining me Friday evening. See you on the mat again soon.